Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Friday, January 23rd, 2026. It is about 1:20 in the afternoon, and we are going to spend various amounts of time talking about the numbers and kind of finalizing some of the decisions. One of the decisions we want to talk about relates to pilot funding. And there were some questions yesterday as well. And then when I talked with JFO last night and this morning, they had some other ideas about things. So here we are. And Chris Roop is kindly, he's only here for about 6 or 7 minutes and then he'll come back. But I wanted him to give us an overview so we can all ponder it and then we'll come back and explain it again.
Knowing that we're going to be here.
Yeah, so take it away, Chris. We just got your handouts and it'll be posted on our committee page at some point. Okay.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Chris Roop, Joint Fiscal. Hopefully you can see this. Going up a little bit. So, the chair asked me to come in and just walk you through a little bit about the pilot fund because there are a few items contained in the GovRec BAA as well as in the FY27 budget that pertain to the pilot fund. So it might be helpful to have a little bit of an orientation on what goes in and out of the pilot fund and how much money is in there. So over on the left side, I pulled together with the tremendous assistance of our colleagues at the tax department, some estimates on the appropriations as well as the expected expenditures out of the pilot fund. Just to refresh everyone's memory, the pilot fund receives a portion of local option tax revenue. You all changed the law last year. So to change that shift from 70-30 to 75-25. So that's why on line 17 of my sheet on the screen, you see that tax projections for pilot revenue go down slightly from 26 to 27 just because 27 has that full year of that newer rate. But even at that lower rate of 25% of the money coming in, 14.6 million is a fairly substantial amount of money. And it's likely that will start growing a little bit over time as more towns enact local option taxes. We won't have a great sense till after March how many more towns might be on the horizon, but you all changed the law a few years ago to make it easier for towns to enact local option taxes without having to go through the
Change bit, yeah.
So you all will remember that we use this fund to pay for pilot payments to municipalities, as well as for a host of other activities that benefit municipalities. So column B on my sheet on the screen there shows the appropriations that have come out of the fund in FY26. You'll see the three at the top there are recurring pilot payment items. You also did a one-time appropriation for $1 million for the municipal grand list stabilization program. If you go just to the right, you see that that's going to be dribbled out over a period of years, and roughly 150,000 or roughly 82,000 is expected to be spent in 26, but more will be spent in future years.
So this was the money that we authorized to be used to help stabilize grand lists in towns that have been affected by flooding.
Yeah, with
So you remember that.
buyouts of flood properties,
Flood
this helps backfill the municipal tax rolls.
Right.
Exactly. I highlighted in that block that 500,000. That was the request from the administration for money for the tax department to continue the telecommunications property evaluation work that accompanied the telephone property tax legislation.
And we've agreed to that. We've done that. So that should sound familiar.
And you'll see that, that's not all proposed to be spent in FY26. That will be spent out over a period of years. The town highway non-federal disasters last year, you appropriated 1.15 million for this in lieu of T funds, and that freed up T funds to be used elsewhere in the transportation budget. That was a one-time arrangement in FY26. And this is related to an open item that is, my understanding, it's not fully resolved in the BAA, that Finance and Management allowed AOT an excess receipt to draw an additional 360,000 above and beyond this 1.15 to deal with 2 additional projects in Norwich and Pomfret. And the GovRec BAA had proposed AOT backfilling the pilot fund for that $360,000. And that would have come, I think, 67,000 from the general fund and just under 300,000 would come from the transportation fund. I don't know if the committee has fully resolved that issue.
So we're just I'm glad Chris is doing this because it brings it up and we'll talk about that. We agreed yesterday not to make them pay the general fund part back. That was the 67,000. We never actually talked about the T fund paying back the pilot fund. So that's a conversation that Chris has put in the next batch over there. So that's still an unresolved question at this point.
And the other block I highlighted over, if you jump 2 columns over to that 3.41 million on reappraisal and listing payments, that is contained in the GovRec. The governor's proposing to take funds in the tax department's budget, and this has typically been done with general fund, and instead pay for this with pilot funds. This line item pays for municipal assistance with grand list maintenance and litigation. A per parcel payment that towns get from the state is funded out of this appropriation. And it is oriented toward things that support municipalities in the grand list. And the governor is proposing, there's a lot of verbiage that goes with it in the GovRec 27 BAA, but he's proposing to shift these costs beginning next year over to the pilot fund. You will
Wasn't he putting 3.4 million of general fund into this fund for FY27?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm really more confused than I was.
It was drawing down some of the surplus from the pilot fund.
26 BAA.
No, he meant 27 budget.
GovRec.
He meant the budget, not the BAA. So he's suggesting drawing down the pilot by 3.4 million,
Yeah, essentially shifting this cost into the pilot fund rather than the general.
shifting the reappraisal and listing payments.
Correct.
Okay, that was from
General fund.
From general, correct. So based on these proposals and everything, where things stand right now is based on there would be $15.8 million of appropriations in 27 coming out of the pilot fund. It wouldn't, due to some of the expenditures from the one-time payments from earlier, some of that is expected to continue trickling out in FY27 and beyond, which is why you see the expected expenditures being a little different than the appropriations, because those one-times are still being spent down. But when you factor in what the tax department expects will be spent out of the fund in 27 and what we expect the current tax projection would be, the pilot fund would still end 27 with an almost $15.4 million surplus.
So at the bottom, somebody asked, I think Lynn asked yesterday, how much do we spend on pilot, or Wayne, one of you guys asked. And the expected for this year is the 12.923 million. I'm looking at your expected expenditures, right?
Yeah, and yeah, that includes not just pilot payments, but the other things that are coming out of the pilot fund.
Right. But all payments coming out of the pilot fund,
Right.
12.9. But getting 14,880,000 is projected the revenue to come in.
Right, and we expect the fund would end the year with 16.9, almost 17 million.
17 million, right.
There's a surplus from previous years.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Yes, we keep having a surplus. So, and then the next year, the governor's current recommendation, we'd have 15.8 million in appropriations from the pilot fund.
Right.
And with money coming in,
At
14.5, we still end up, and then expenditures, we end up with that 15.4 million. So this is
Right.
a healthy fund that self-replenishes and is on a growth curve at the moment.
Right, and I want to flag that that general pilot line, that 12.2 million is conservatively budgeted and estimated. It is likely to come down a little bit lower, and that is due to some impacts from the CLA. So in order to make sure these are fully funded, tax department puts an estimate together to make sure there is enough money. You'll see over in the 26 column that they're expecting to spend a little bit less than that 12.2 million. So there's a little bit of potential for a little bit of cushion there.
Right, and so what's different about the right side?
All right, let's go to the right side. So for discussion purposes,
Yes, thank you. Make that clear.
I want to be clear, this does not represent a proposal from JFO. It doesn't represent, my crystal ball. This is for your discussion to give you a scenario what things might look like. If you all were to agree to not backfill the pilot fund for those town highway projects, and keep that $360,000 cost in the pilot fund, it would increase the town highway non-federal disaster appropriation and expenditure from that 1.15 million up to that 1.510 total.
Numbers all look so similar.
Yeah, I spent half an hour tracking down a $200 typo and then I found it. Another thing for your consideration is if you were, as you're thinking about closing out the BAA, if you were to look at what the governor is recommending doing beginning next year with the reappraisal and listing payment line item in the tax department's budget at 3.41, if you were interested in seeing what it would look like to begin that in FY26 rather than in FY27, that would put another 3.41 million into the FY26 expenditure column and draw 3.77 million total out of the pilot fund above and beyond for the current fiscal year. If you were to do that, you still would be projected to end FY27 with $11.6 million in the fund, which is more than it had at the end of FY24.
Plenty of money. Yeah.
Yes, and on the revenue side, the revenue, because it should be fairly stable anyway, because it's coming through the same way. So it's been running 14,880,000.
It's actually grown over time.
It will grow.
It's grown quite a bit over time to the point where it used to be that the towns with a local option tax would retain 70% of the revenue and the other 30% would come to the pilot fund. Due to the growth in consumption tax revenue post-COVID and the number of towns that have local option taxes, we've seen revenue grow quite a bit to the point where the legislature last session changed that revenue share so the towns would keep an extra 5%. So even with that reduced share of revenue coming into the pilot fund, we still expect there will be some towns that will likely enact some more local option taxes. A lot of the low hanging fruit's been picked, but there's still some towns out there that might do it. And if consumption behavior tends to be strong, we expect that 14.5 number will probably keep creeping up.
So I'm looking at the expected revenues and, what we're talking about, taking money out. I'd just like to see, how much money is flowing in and how much is flowing out. If we make a little change here, is it significant, major factor in the future or not? Doesn't look as if they would be a major factor.
Yeah, I'm not very concerned with the trajectory we're on right now. I spoke to the tax department earlier, and I think they feel really comfortable that the current picture and trajectory would likely support that additional 3.41 million as ongoing expense. But if you were to consider adding any additional recurring expenses into the pilot fund moving forward, that could start really eroding the cash balance. So.
Question about the AOT town highway non-fed disasters here. So looking at the right hand spreadsheet right here, potentially going up to 1.5.
Right.
From 1.15 here. Practically speaking, how much of a difference would that make here for our towns? Lots of towns have like big gaps. This is a non-disaster. It's right here.
I don't think this would really make any difference for towns writ large. I think what this is a very, very narrow piece of the pilot fund. And I think at the end of the day, $360,000 out of a fund with this kind of surplus is not going to change the trajectory of the pilot fund. It could, however, be meaningful to funds like the transportation fund and the general fund that we all know are struggling to make ends meet. This wouldn't take anything away from any towns. It wouldn't be additive in the big picture. This is really related to two additional bridge projects that I believe they were bridge projects that were able to be addressed by VTrans in the past year.
Which is sort of an appropriate use of pilot
Right.
funds. It's like the exact thing. And remember, this is the one, they had cost overruns. And so if they had budgeted the full amount the first time with no cost overruns, they would have gotten it.
Right.
But they didn't
Yeah.
have it. They, you know how projects go.
Yeah.
It always costs more than
It
you
takes
think, and it
longer.
always takes longer than you think. There's the two rules of project construction projects, right? Marty?
I just have a couple of comments, just for general information. I'm probably kicking myself in the butt for doing it, but not every town charges local option tax. And yet the benefits go back to all municipalities. So last year, there was a proposal in Ways and Means that the towns that did contribute to local option tax, they asked to have that surplus revenue returned to them. The conclusion that Ways and Means came out with was to change that, the balance of the use so that towns got to keep more. But I think we just need to remember that all towns do not contribute, and yet the benefits go to all towns. And my town is one of those. We do not contribute, and yet we have a lot of state buildings, and so get a nice payment from them.
But also the towns that do contribute get 70%.
Correct.
And so they're already getting a lot of benefit that you're
Right.
not getting because you don't have a local option.
That's true. But I think we just need to remember that, and to remember that there might exist at some time a request from the towns that do contribute to go back and revisit what we do with this surplus. So we just need to be prepared that that might come along.
By the same token, all of our state lands have payment taxes.
But that's a totally different fund.
That's a different, the A and R pilot is a different.
It's not the same pilot.
It's a different.
We have more than one pilot.
Yeah,
How many?
well, the A and R program is not funded with the pilot special fund. We're talking about the buildings and state college properties and things of that nature.
My assumption was all at one fund.
No, there's two separate funds, and we reorganized the A and R fund about 5 years ago.
The money goes to the towns, just like with this one.
Yes, it does. But the towns don't contribute to it.
But they could also, they don't contribute. Then there are towns that would say, we don't have any state land, and some say, we have all state land. We want a bigger piece of the pie.
Oh,
Start slips.
But that's a whole separate,
That's a whole
separate thing, and it's not our purview, so.
yeah, let's stay away from that.
Good, yeah, I think so. John, did you have a question? Okay,
Thank you.
Lynn?
You were saying, was it 13.6 million? Is that what you were?
In what context?
I don't know. You were saying on the end, we ended up with 13 point something. I don't see whatever number I see, 13.2. I see 11.6 million. You're talking about the DAA.
13.2 is over on the right side, yes, for discussion purposes.
End up with-
Okay.
If you do these.
I said you end with 11.6.
11.6, so that's, the
Yeah.
one, okay.
The bottom right-hand,
Right.
Yeah, that's the one, that's with 27,
Right, that's what you would end FY 27 with,
so that's a fund balance.
based on estimates of the expenditure level that would happen,
So with all
a
these-
year and a half into the future.
Right. As opposed to 15.4. If we didn't make any changes. The one with the government threat.
Correct. Yeah, the delta's 3.77.
so we have a grounding in the pilot because it may come into play in what we're talking about with sources of funds for things we want to do in the budget adjustment. And we've kept you way past time. They haven't yelled at you and said, hurry up and get upstairs.
When they know where I am, they don't yell at me for some reason.
I wish that worked for us.
Yeah, so we'll probably get you back at some point in the afternoon. I know you're gonna be around, so thank you very much. Thank you for that. It's also good to see, I spent a lot of time dealing with pilot when I was on Ways and Means too, and then I had it when I was a part of my portfolio here. And I haven't seen as clear an explanation of all the pilot stuff one spot before, so I appreciate it. So we got some questions answered. James, are we ready to talk with you at this point?
Yeah, would you like to discuss the base items or one-time items first?
Let's just bring them both up.
Okay.
For the record, James Duffy, Joint Fiscal. Circulating the table now are two tables for running for this discussion. The first is some ideas, proposals for discussion for hack additions to the BAA. One would be base adjustments to some base items, and one would be adjustments to the BAA under the one times.
And so just to remind people, some of these we've kind of made decisions on already, but I wanted to put everything together. And also, we talked about doing stuff, but we wanted to be sure that we had the money to do the things that we wanted to do. And we, you know, some of it we're kind of clear on, but not all of them. So I kind of put together a very rough little spreadsheet last night that I could try to figure out for myself where things were coming from. And I showed it to James and Emily. Yes, mine didn't look as pretty as theirs. They pretty enough. I put together this thing and the way I think, and then they organize my life for me. It's great. So then I said, well, not sure that we can do things that I want to do or that we think we might want to do. So these guys also worked, thought about it overnight with some other potential sources of funds. Other than the ones that we've pretty much agreed on as of yesterday, and again, nothing's closed till everything's closed, our mantra. I'm putting something out there. This is not, you have to agree with everything. So we'll have a chance to have conversations. We may go off live after this and people can talk and we can check in with each other and see how we're feeling about it all. So this is just, you know, time to put a line in the sand and start talking about it. And Mike's got a question already, so go for it, Mike.
Is this online?
Autumn, is this posted?
Would you like this posted? I wasn't sure if we wanted. to
Oh,
post
you
this.
email it to.
I've already emailed a copy to Rep Niagara, so you can.
You have, you found it in
Got
your
it.
email?
Thank you.
Okay.
Is it online?
No, James, can you email?
I did. Yep. Yes.
To Dave also?
Could you?
Oh, sure.
Thank you so much.
So I wanted us to think about it as terms of, there's a bunch of one-time, which is mostly what we've talked about, and then there's a couple of base options also, which we have talked about but haven't. We now have more information, so that's kind of what, so we'll start with one-time.
So Jackie, I defer to you on how you'd like to handle the discussion. I could pull these up on my screen behind me if that's helpful. Otherwise,
Sure. If you want to do that, I'll just, yeah, so you started with sources and then uses. Okay. The rounding is always throws me off because I put 250,000 and then you have to think about what the actual number is. That's why I went my way first, so I understand.
I would do.
Yeah.
I'll hop on the Zoom to screen just
Yeah, why don't you
start
do
with
that?
this one. So
Yeah.
what you have in front of you are potential hack FY26 BAA proposals. The top half of the table identifies sources of funding, potential sources of funding for the committee's consideration. And then the bottom half of the table is potential uses for that additional funding that's made available. So we have sources and potential one-time appropriations to use those sources for. So total sources is currently for the table in front of you for consideration, 9.39 million. Total uses in front of you for consideration are 9.03 million, which would leave $360,000 on the bottom line for FY26 BAA.
That's the big picture.
Yeah, would you like to go?
We need to talk about where we're getting all these monies from, because
So the first source of funding is, for consideration, is $5 million from the FY26 appropriation to the Agency of Administration. This comes from $50 million that you all appropriated to the Agency of Administration for use by the E-Board to make up for potential federal funding shortfalls. This source is sort of directly tied to the $5 million appropriation and for your consideration to for Section 8 housing vouchers. So that's kind of
we had matched those sources and uses up. And that's what we've talked about all the way along. So that's not new to anybody.
And is that an appropriate use?
Yes,
of funds?
yes, because it was supposed to be for federal funds impacts
Mhm.
specifically. And this is the one where the E-Board almost met to do this in December, but we
Right.
decided from a timing standpoint, it was not, it wasn't needed then, and we should wait till the General Assembly was there. So this is the stuff we've been talking about all along, except for the Section 8.
Yeah, how does that fit in the thing we were just discussing this morning about that state money is not municipal? Who's Section 8?
Oh, yeah, so I think I said something wrong. There are things that it's not permissible for, but I think I misunderstood Dave's question, or I just answered wrong anyway. But you were asking if it will help down the road with future increases, and I was thinking of it a little bit differently than the way you meant it. And James, do you want to respond correctly to what I?
Sure, I can explain the proposal from the State Housing Authority as I understand it. I think they're also in the room, so they
Yeah.
can correct me if I get this wrong. But Rep. Yakavon, I believe your question earlier was, does this one-time appropriation, proposed appropriation, increase federal funding that flows to housing vouchers in Vermont in the future? And while no state appropriation can change the total amount of federal funding that HUD may decide to give to housing authorities, the idea behind the proposal is to increase the number of vouchers in circulation that are included in future funding years. Renewal calculations for public housing authorities in Vermont. So the federal appropriation, the total appropriation is what it is. It's decided at the federal level, but how that is allocated to public housing authorities is in part a function of how many vouchers they have on the street the previous year, right? So the idea behind the proposal is to maximize the number of vouchers in circulation now that are considered for future funding calculations in the future. So the idea being there is a benefit that flows to housing authorities in the future.
Potentially, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Thank you.
Yes, a one-time investment is the gift that keeps on giving. So this is clearly one time. Clearly laid out that this is one time. And I think they have to open separate accounts. They can't, you know, it has to be separate from federal money. So they would have, and this would be essentially sort of the agency of administration would hold the money, and then the housing authorities would apply. And have we looked at that language yet? No, we haven't. We have not as a group looked at the language associated with that, but there is, Cameron did a great job of working with lots of people to figure this out and make sure we have some safeguards in place so that it doesn't either hurt the state or it doesn't hurt the housing authorities going forward. And so they've looked at it, their attorneys have looked at it. All the people that need to seem to have looked at it, and people are comfortable with that. And we will go over that language. We just haven't done that. Good. All right.
Okay, so that was all kind of under the umbrella of discussing the first source of potential funding for additional BAA proposals.
First use.
Yeah. The next under sources is funding for the reappraisal and listing payments, moving this funding from the general fund to the pilot special fund. So this one's a little bit interesting. In the fiscal year 2027 proposed budget from the governor, there is a proposal to move funding for reappraisal and listing payments. Emily and Brew can speak a little bit more about what that specifically is, I think. But there is a program for reappraisal and grand list payments that's currently dedicated to general fund that is being moved to the pilot fund, proposed to be moved to the pilot fund in FY27. What this would do is follow that same plan, but for fiscal year 26, right? So freeing up $3.41 million in general fund by moving that $3.4 million appropriation to the pilot.
And the reason is we have this $3 million pension issue. We have to do the $3 million pension. And so figuring out where we're getting the money for that has been the challenge, to say the least, for Tom.
When there are transactions for reappraisal funding, I mean, the reappraisals in the state got hammered through COVID. There's the backlog. I mean, it's part and parcel of why property taxes got askew and all this stuff. My understanding, at one point, there was $7 for every transaction or for something that helped pay for that over time that the towns could then go and get. I know I'm not sure where that money came from. Didn't it come from the pilot program? Wasn't that part of what the pilot program was originally set up to do, was to have that funding available? And now are we saying that because there's I guess surplus may not be quite the right word, but now that there's more money in the pilot program, are we making sure that that's what this money is being used for now, is to pay for the towns to have their reappraisals? There always used to be funding available that at least diminished the cost for the
The
individual towns.
$8.50 per
Per
parcel,
parcel.
Yeah.
per parcel fee. Where did that come from?
Came from the general.
I think it was this appropriation.
So is this permanently shifting it so that $8 and whatever it is now, $8.50 per parcel will come out of pilot funding?
This would just shift that, the source of funding for that function from the general fund to the pilot fund for FY26.
Just for 1 year?
I believe that what's in front of you all for discussion would be just for FY26. And I'll add, however, that there is a proposal in the FY27 GovRec to do that
Yes.
same switch from general funds to
Okay.
Yes, I'll just add, fiscal office, if you make, whatever decision you make regarding the 26 budget, this would be a one-time thing for the 26 budget, you still would be able to make a decision for the 27 budget. You could fund it from wherever you want to.
And so, again, it's a short term, this isn't gonna mess with the towns. Towns shouldn't have any like confusion over how they're getting their money. But
Great question. I'm sure they're okay. Yeah. So Marty and then John.
But isn't it correct, Emily, that money that goes to towns to help them with the reappraisals, so much per parcel and that kind of stuff, has traditionally come from the general?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And it comes from the tax department through the general fund, payment to the town puts it into their lister's budget, whatever, and they helps fund the
Right.
lister activity within the town.
And I think, I don't know that this is a true statement, but I'm guessing that it was from the general fund before we had the pilot fund the way we did, and this, as much money as we're getting from the pilot fund. And so then it makes more sense to do it from the pilot fund. instead of the general fund.
I understand why we might want to move
Right.
it to the.
But yes, that was
Yes.
the traditional, and we
Right.
didn't used to have enough money in the pilot fund
Right.
to be able to do anything like that, nor could we pay 100% of the value of pilot until the last few years when all of this changed.
Right, but it was the function of state government to provide extra funding to the town for them to fulfill their
Right.
responsibility of
Right,
keeping an updated grand list, because not only do they participate in that,
Right.
use that grand list for the municipal taxes, but the state uses that grand list for our education taxes as
Right.
well. So it's a
Right.
function of helping supplement their budgets to do that
Right.
work.
right. And they'll still get the money, it's just from a different spot.
Correct,
The
that's
way it's
the
being
proposal.
proposed. John,
That's always been a per year payment to each town here.
per parcel per year.
Put that into their budget in a separate place and not be used for anything else.
That's right.
Correct.
And, over time, some towns may have lost that. Have used some of that money for other things.
Lost it. Towns complain it's not sufficient
They do.
to cover their costs.
There's only like.
So it's become,
Right,
so it
right.
might be for some towns, it's become more of a partial.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So
this is,
it's
for this
here
one's
for them.
one time, the whole system.
The whole system, yeah, I'm talking about the whole system, not so much for this right here.
Thank you
Okay,
for that explanation, I appreciate it.
great. Yes, this pilot is. And so, yeah, so that that is, we're looking at that because of the pension issue. And we can do this without harming pilot or harming the towns with what they would get or harming anything else. It's kind of a painless way to do things. And it's one time. Okay, thank you, James. Let's go continue.
The next item under sources, first the Read Vermont program. So in the revised GovRec BDA that you all saw, additional reversions were proposed by the administration to make up for the revenue downgrade in the latter half of FY '26. As part of the funding that was freed up through those reversions, the administration also proposed an appropriation to the Read Vermont program in the amount of $700,000. In putting together potential revenue sources for items before the committee for consideration, this is revenue from the general fund that was effectively freed up under the governor's recommended proposal. You could choose to use this for Read Vermont. You could also choose to use this for potential other items before you for consideration in the BAA.
So here's what I was thinking when I did this. The governor proposed two things to start in the budget adjustment. He proposed $500,000 for the accountability courts, and he proposed $700,000 for this Read Vermont program. And I'm proposing that we keep the accountability court in the budget adjustment as the governor recommended, but we take out the $700,000 and look at it again. Could be in section C of the FY '27 budget and still go for this year, but we haven't heard anything about it. We haven't taken testimony. House Education hasn't taken testimony. And so putting what to us is a new program in budget adjustment doesn't seem to make sense to me. They still have a chance in FY '27 in section C to have it be for this year. So that was my thinking of those two things. Keep one, defer the other.
But and the thing is, for this amount of money, how come it doesn't come out of the education fund? It's education.
There are programs that come out of the administrative budget for the education fund. That's not unusual. It's not like it's in the wrong place, but it's new for us.
If we had testimony on it, they could decide where it should come.
I think it's coming from the right place, but go ahead, John.
So this is new and not supplanting something they're currently using for training teachers.
No, so remember the little purple lines in the spreadsheet that James handed out yesterday?
Oh, it said new.
Those are all
I saw that.
Right. So there were two big things that he did, and Adam talked about it this morning. He talked about the sustainability courts for $500,000 and the $700,000 for the Read Vermont. So on this sheet, what I'm proposing is that we keep you won't see it here because we would keep the $500,000 for the accountability courts, but we would defer the $700,000 and not include it, and then we can deal with it in the budget.
Okay. I just find it confusing to say that the source is not doing the Read Vermont, but isn't it, the source is just the additional reversions?
Correct.
that the
Yes,
Administration
it is,
came up with.
but that's where it came from. So I wanted you to all see.
He wanted to put it there, and we're saying, no, we'll take those reversions and
Right.
use it
Right,
here.
right.
So-
That's exactly.
Right. I felt like this was less, I didn't want to appear sneaky, and I just wanted you to see
No, no, no,
where I
I
was thinking
understand
it should come from.
Okay.
Okay. We can pretty this up in other ways too, but anyway, I wanted you to know what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay.
Moving on, there had been
Oh, Lynn, sorry.
Yeah, so, okay. You had two things that the governor wanted. One
Right.
is this children's literacy thing.
Right,
Training the teachers.
right.
And the other was the accountability court. Is that already in the BAA or?
No, those were new. We went over that purple sheet this morning.
Yeah.
Those were two new things that he was proposing in the budget adjustment that were not in the budget
So
adjustment.
is that the part where we go to one-time appropriations? The accountability.
Are you on the purple?
Well, it's in the purple, but I'm looking at this one here that we just said.
Yes. So you won't see the accountability court on here because I'm proposing just leaving it in the budget,
You didn't have the budget or the BAA?
the BAA.
So
You get just a BAA.
Right.
So it's not in the BAA now. We're gonna add it to the BAA.
We're gonna keep. Yeah, I mean, we could put them in here too. We could put them both in here, both the 500. We could put reversions. We could have done this a different way.
Now I'm just confused as to where when I understood it, you can, I'm maybe wrong. Okay, so
So the governor,
only courts
yeah,
are not in the BAA now, or they are?
they were not in the first BAA that the governor gave us.
Yes.
They were in the second BAA, the revised one that we got this week.
Okay.
So from the governor.
With all the great stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, that purple thing, you'll see, those are the two, he added two new programs.
Here.
Okay.
He added two new programs in the revised budget after the downgrade. And I am proposing keeping one of them and not keeping the other.
Right now.
Right, and by not keeping the other, we have freed up that money to use for other things that we talked about. Are we all good on that?
Ability for it was an ongoing thing, but this.
It was one, well, it's still one time and it's
I
way,
know, but they were working on it, right?
yeah,
The Reaper Vermont is a brand new one.
The accounting for the funding that's in the BLA right now is for the current Chittenden County accountability docket. Backfilling those expenses district and from the state's attorney's office. This 500, that's ending the end of next month. So this money's being earmarked to expand that program because it's been successful. I think it's been decided how that gets all allocated.
so if Rutland decides they really want to participate, then there's some funding available.
Yes.
If 8 counties decide they want to participate, there isn't enough money, but that's for them to figure out, but you have to be willing. They're not saying it's going to happen here. They're saying if you're willing, then you come to us and then here's some money. Okay. Are we all clear as mud on this now?
So moving on, there has been discussion in committee earlier this week about potential funding for recovery centers in the committee's recommended BAA. So you'll see under potential uses of funding below, there's a $210,000 potential appropriation to recovery centers. That has a corresponding source on the top half of the table, $210,000 from the Substance Misuse Prevention Special Fund. In just speaking with you, Madam Chair, potential applicable sources for that,
That's a match, and we kind of agreed to that yesterday, that there was enough money in the substance misuse fund to cover 210,000. And I know that Mike Nigro has some comments that he would like to make about this particular thing. So Mike, you're on.
Yeah, well, for now, I was just going to ask the Substance Misuse Prevention Special Fund, and I don't have this right in front of me because I'm working on my tablet. Did Nolan say my memory is that was very close to the amount in there, but that the fund
Yes.
actually had a little bit more?
The fund had 228,000 in it, and we were going to take 210.
Got it. Okay. And obviously it's a very small amount. Was there any reason to leave the small amount in there still?
No, all it was that was half of what the original request was. And so whether we could take it all and use that, I don't know. We haven't talked about that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for noticing the hand. It's harder to see your hand when we are sharing the screen, but it's good that you put it up because Tiff's watching. Okay. All right, and then the next one we know about too, right?
yes, I believe the committee has discussed this a fair bit. This is the
So much.
Yes, the GovRec's proposal transfer $70,000 from the general fund to the pilot special fund. Should the committee decide to not go in that direction and retain that $70,000 in the general fund, that would be $70,000 available for use for additional BAA proposals.
And so we agreed to that yesterday too, of not making.
Yes, that item was closed out
Yeah,
yesterday.
right.
Yeah, so you all have already agreed to decline to make that transfer in your committee recommendation.
Right. Okay, and then the one-time appropriations, some of these we pretty much already agreed to, and some of these are new that I threw in there so we could have a conversation. Okay. So I think we've done the section 8, talked about that numerous times. And we've talked about the pension. And so do you want to go from there, James?
Sure. So I believe the committee heard directly from Tri-Valley Transit regarding deficits they incurred in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26.
So I'm going to pause you right there. It's for, it was Jim Moulton of Tri-Valley Transit speaking for the Vermont Public Transit. So it's for the whole state. And we've all been calling it that because that's where he came from. But it's for the whole state.
Right. And so this relates to a contract that DEVA maintains with the Public Transportation Association of the Vermont or Vermont Public Transportation Association to provide non-emergency medical transportation for Medicaid enrollees. They have issues, longstanding issues with, insufficient reimbursement of costs associated with the non-emergency medical transportation program. So this committee heard from PVTA requesting an $800,000 appropriation for the BAA to make up for FY25 and FY26 deficits from the NEMT program. So JFO has reached out to AHS and we have confirmed that that $800,000 appropriation would break down further into $330,000 from general fund and $570,000 from federal funds, totaling an $800,000 appropriation from global commitment.
So we haven't agreed yet, but we're showing you what it would be.
I know this is highlighted. We just heard from AHS in
Okay.
a few minutes before I came into the chair and they confirmed this.
So we can unhighlight
Yes.
that. Okay,
So they're gonna leverage federal money?
yes. Yes. Quite a bit.
So we have 900,000.
So 330 leverages 570,000.
I should make the correction. The federal fund component would be 470,000 now, not 500.
Ah, somebody caught a math
A
there.
total of $800,000.
Okay. That's John.
Spreadsheeting on the fly.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just want to clarify to the group that according to the person in my local area who's part of this, he endorses that we do this, but he warns that they are in deficit for the coming year as well. So this is an issue people.
They are consistently in deficit. This is another example of, another theme of underfunding.
Underfunding, right,
Yes.
not getting the right reimbursement. for it.
Yeah.
I've also lost ridership and other things. I mean, it's gone down.
This is non-medical transport.
Yeah.
This is not ridership.
Yeah.
This is people taking you to your Medicaid appointment because you don't have a car, can't get there. They're not reimbursing for that.
Right. I gave you that.
I never got the email in, but
Yeah,
I know the
it was-
issue quite well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's not about people taking the bus to commute to work.
No, but they have had a decline in the number of people using it, so that has been another issue.
Nolan?
For the record, Nolan, I will join this one. So when I spoke with Jamie, he also mentioned that part of the problem is with some practices closing, a lot of people have to drive farther to get to their appointments, and that's been driving up the costs, and it is that it's cost them more to take people farther.
Sure. So if it closes in Middlebury and they have to go to Rutland, that's a lot farther. That's 70 miles round trip.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that is. Okay,
You all also heard from the Vermont Food Bank during BAA public testimony or public hearing.
so I threw in a number. I threw in 250,000 and that's what I did. That's not a decision. That's just throwing it in there for us to discuss.
We'll start that discussion now or.
Or in a few minutes. I want to get through all this and then we might, I don't know if people want to take a quick break and whether we have to do any other chatting before we all come back together to talk about it or not. So
We've discussed the recovery center piece already. Bridges to Health was another BAA request that you all heard. This is support for their transition from UVM to Vermont Free and Referral Clinics.
I think we kind of agreed to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed to that one.
Next is Vermont Cares. You all heard from them during public hearing about the requesting $45,000 rather. An additional $45,000 beyond their
Right, because they've been level funded for,
Well, it really is in part because of the cost of supplies has gone up
significantly, and then the closing of two other providers. Right, so I think we,
Increase their caseload.
right, and I think we agreed to that one too. Okay, continue, James.
And then finally, you all heard from folks requesting $30,000 for Meals on Wheels, supplemental funding for Meals on Wheels as a BA request. I believe that was also discussed yesterday.
Yes, and I think we
you all
agreed to
agreed
that one also. That's a statewide, it goes to the Vermont Center for Independent Living, which does a statewide program
For disabled.
for the disabled under age 60 or something.
Something
Anyway,
like that,
disabled,
but-
anyway, it's a very specific population. They're the only ones who oversee that for the whole state. So we agreed to that. So where does that get us on the bottom line?
Brings you to a total of $9.03 million for total uses, and that leaves 360,000 on the bottom line. Accounting just for these potential one-time appropriations.
Right, and all of this is one-time money, one-time appropriations. We're not doing any base in this, so that's what we're looking at for that one. So I want to have James talk about the two base possibilities. And then I think if people have other questions or concerns, and then we can maybe take a break and do some thinking about this.
Are they in your email too, Jane?
They are, yes. You might have to expand. Sometimes if there's two attachments, it condenses it into one if you expand it.
Thank you. Okay.
Mike, do you have this other one you have both pages in your email? Okay,
Yes, thank you.
okay, great.
So these are not one-time considerations, but rather adjustments to Medicaid reimbursement rates that would be made through the BAA for Q4 of FY26. But in making that change would also become base, it would become FY27 base going into the next fiscal year. So that's the distinction between this table and the one that we just reviewed. Madam Chair, I believe you have had some discussion with JFO and perhaps other members of the committee about a GovRec, that there was an item in the GovRec that proposed appropriating $14.5 million for nursing home emergency financial relief grants. That's split between general fund and federal funds. It's subject to local commitment.
Yes, okay, so the two issues that were Medicaid related in the budget adjustment were the 2% for the agencies on aging, the triple, that were inadvertently left out of the 2% increase that had been requested in last year's budget. The cost of that for one quarter, and there's a whole lot of reasons we can't do retroactive. There's laws, federal regulations that don't let you do things. So we're trying to follow the law so nobody gets hurt. That is so for the last quarter, everybody starts April, May, and June for the AAAs would be 35,000 in gross money, but 14,510 in general fund money out of the FY26 budget. If we do a base thing, it consumes that we're going to be doing it in FY27. It's not a one-time. And so NOLA was able to annualize that for us. And so on an annualized basis for the AAAs, is that annualized general fund or annualized gross? The 14904.
4904, that is annualized, that's my understanding, annualized gross.
Okay, so I guess for both of these, can we find out what the general fund annualized part of that is?
Yes.
And same for the one above. So the one above that has all those letters and percentages, that's that tier one thing. That's how I remember it. It was the payments to David, help me.
Yeah.
Residential care facilities were part of the ERC, enhanced residential care.
That's
There
right.
are three payment tiers. And one was excluded.
One actually went down.
Yeah,
Their rates went down. There was the tier one, tier two, and tier three based on what they offer. for some reason, tier one went down while the other two went up, and it was never the General Assembly's intent to have somebody have money taken away from them, which is essentially what's happening. So we asked Nolan to see, again, with an April start for the fourth quarter of FY '26, what the cost would be. And the gross is the 267,888, and the general fund is 110,000. But that would be annualized for just over $1 million in FY '27. But what we don't know is what of that is general fund and what is that, so Nolan will figure that.
So the general fund portion annualized, for the ERC one.
Yeah.
449,000, 450.
Yeah,
And then the 140 that for the interplay would be 59,000, so roughly 60, for a total of about 508,000 general fund.
okay,
That's using the new mathematical process.
okay. Thank you. Yes.
I would think it would be helpful for Rep. Giacoboni to just explain, I mean, you know, I'm kind of new to the this world.
But before you do,
Oh,
can I
sorry.
explain where the money's coming from?
No.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, Master.
I thought we'd get the whole thing and then you can explain all the details. Is that all right, Dave?
Yeah.
So the proposal is that there were nursing home grants for extraordinary financial relief of 14,500,000, of which 5.9, almost $6 million is general fund in the FY '26 budget. If we reduce that by 115,000 general fund and reduce the gross, so we'd be really, we'd be taking the difference from we'd be reducing the extraordinary financial relief grants, which is a round number, by whatever those numbers are total. 267 and 35. So 300,000, basically. By reducing the EFR grants by 300,000, that would be the funding source for doing these two things. Yes, please.
And the other thinking behind the chair's thinking, if I can speak for you, is that they're both matched, so you're moving general fund out of one area to get matched, over to
Right.
another area, so you're not losing any federal dollar.
Right. Exactly.
Leveraging.
Yeah, so that's what the thought is. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're taking the money to do this from the nursing homes, ERF grants, and we're changing that.
That's just getting reduced by 300,000
Yes.
or 70,000 general fund or whatever.
Yeah, oh, yeah, right.
Okay,
But, yeah, and then you're applying it to the ERC one, which is the tier one payment that did not go through.
right.
And the other part is going to the AAA case management. Now,
Which was left out.
okay, now, what was explained to me, and it took me a while to understand this, is that the last page of what Brady gave us applied to these designated and specialized.
No, it's unrelated. That's payment reform, not related at all.
So this one that we got from Teresa was attached to her stuff. And
That was,
D, is that the same 1.071 million? So that's addressing the ERC.
yes. Yes. Okay, and Mike has a question, and we will let, and so does John, and then we will let Dave explain what all these things are. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if it makes more sense to let Dave go first. Maybe he'll answer my question as he's
Okay.
talking.
All right. We'll do that. Thank you, Mike. And John, did you have another question before?
Question, I'm gonna ask it anyway. Here's
Okay.
a reduction of 300,000 is because blank. Not to, and you just ignore what's below it here. But reducing this total gross amount by 300,000 is because the need does not add up to that currently.
And the nursing, the grants?
Grants, yes.
That's just a grant program. If people need money, they can apply for it.
It's an estimate.
It's an estimate.
Yes.
Right.
And so in past time, we haven't had people applying that's $300,000 less? And I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, is there more, are there more people applying than we have
We talked
money?
about this before.
Some,
Miles.
yeah, I guess sometimes they have.
Sounds. Taking money from one governor recommendation and bring it to your recommendation.
Right.
So Dave, why don't we have Dave explain the programs?
Before I do.
Yes.
Forgive me, before I get to the underpinnings of policy driving all of this, I just wanted to leave you with a brief thought on the AAA's.
Yep.
On the previous slide, it looked like there was 350,000 to the good when everything
Yeah.
was done. The way I look at it on the AAA's, from July 1st until April.
Yeah.
The last quarter
Right,
is money they shouldn't get, they didn't get,
right.
orally they should get it. Feels like a one-time expense to me. So when I look at one-time sources of funds,
Yeah,
I'm comfortable making that pitch
for that one time.
because it is one time, and then they go on in the base and deal with,
I think there was a problem with doing that.
okay, then
I think there was a legal federal problem with doing that.
okay. Then I'm gonna answer the question the best I can that I
Great, and then I'll confirm if what I just told you is true or not.
I'll stay in my lane.
Go for it, Dave.
The belief is under the whole context of the choices for care, which was part of the Act 160 Shift the Balance initiative in the 1990s, when Choices for Care was formed in the early 2000s by then Commissioner Patrick Flood and Governor Dean. They went to Washington and got permission. It combined nursing home expenses and home and community-based expenses pretty much into one budget, if you will. And the thinking was that Vermonters should have a choice where they want to receive help when they become disabled, based on a series of activities of daily living, their inability to do those things. Many of us sometimes take for granted. The premise also was that the more we can help people stay in their homes, it's a lower cost, at least to Medicaid. It's a lower cost, so we wanted to avoid wherever we could nursing home expenditures, which have been done significantly. When this initiative was started, there were roughly 50 nursing homes. Today, I think the number is 33.
Right.
A lot of bed days that aren't paid for anymore, but are in the community. Given that and the policy desire to help people get services at home, they're entitled to both now. If they're clinically eligible, right? If they're sick. The system is fragile. We all know that. They all are. If people can't get the transportation for their non-medical appointment and they're in a wheelchair, things start to unravel, right? It's all connected. If they don't get their sufficient Meals on Wheels, they're at risk. If they can't get their primary care, all feeds into driving people higher up the continuum of care, the nursing home or the hospital. The ERCs, the residential care homes, have been known for years to be the orphans of the system. Paid a very small amount of money. Initially, this is not my quote, but I'm going to quote one of the members in the policy committee. He said, we're paying them what you would have to pay to have your dog boarded, $47 a day in this tier 1 residential care home. No wonder so many have closed over the years, and many, many have, though it's stabilized this year in the 90s, according to the industry. So if the lowest tier, the tier 1, isn't paid sufficiently, the testimony I took when I did the research on this from the folks in the Alzheimer's, was that many of the Alzheimer's folks who are lower level, beginning Alzheimer's, very painful when you have, no matter where you're at in the Alzheimer's journey. But a lot of those folks who need structured supervision, it's very hard now for the residential care facilities to take them because of the reimbursement. People, the industry, looking for the tier 2 and the tier 3 if they can. of which there are many, there are plenty there too. But what happens is, it's not yet a cost burden to the system, but it's a very painful struggle to the families who have to continue the challenge of caring for a loved one at home. They can't get them anywhere. They deteriorate further, and then in time, they become a tier 2 or a tier 3, or all the way into the nursing home. So the system relies on enough investments at the lower end to present the higher. Does that make any sense?
So it's less expensive at tier 1. It's the most expensive is the nursing homes. And the more people we can keep at the less expensive places, the less our healthcare costs go up.
You did it so quickly.
Well, that's because I heard you. You did a great job explaining. Does that kind of make sense to people of how that works? So this lowest tier, least expensive got cut, essentially. And so that's what this proposal is about. And then the question was, where do we get the money from? Especially where there's a match, federal match. And so Nolan did a little research and found out that in fact, we can exchange one kind of federal match for another kind of federal match and maybe accomplish something that we would like to accomplish. What we also have to remember in this, and I do see Mike's hand up, is that this is base, so this is making a commitment for FY27, which is why I wanted to get from Nolan what the general fund base costs were for 27. So that's all needs to go into our thinking. I'm going to get Mike and then I'll get you, Wayne. Mike?
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm the 2% increase for tier 1. Is that based off of what their current lowered rate is? So basically, I don't know how much it lowered. Did it lower by 2% and now we're going to get it back to where it was? Is this, or was this based off the previous level?
Nolan is going to answer that question.
Oh, for the record, again, the whole Monroe joint fiscal, so what happened was part of the process last year, Eva had done a rate study.
Right.
And they looked at, what it would look like to rebase. And so what was done was, based on that study, it lowered, Eva determined that ERC 1 was being overpaid. And so they, in the process of giving rates up the other way, they offset some of that cost, lowering the rates for the ERC 1 to what their report felt was the right rate. So that's why they reduced it. Now, I'm not going to say whether it's the right rate or wrong, I'm not weighing in. I'm just saying that's what their study determined. So this is the amount of money to bring them back to where they were prior to the rate increase. So it's holding them harmless to the rate decrease based on the rate study.
So it basically level funds them.
It brings them back to where they were. It doesn't give
Right.
them 3%, it gets them to where they were.
Right. Right. Thank you. Does that make sense, Mike? Are you good on that? I think
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
okay. Great.
And that's just for that period of time from 1st of April to the end of the fiscal year.
Right. So the part under the blue section there is just for the last quarter of FY26. And then over on the right side is what the total gross amount is for FY27. And then Nolan said that general fund would be about 449,000 for the ERC 1 and about 59,000 for the AAAs for a full year of FY27.
So keeping them whole, when we get into the budget,
Yeah.
we don't intend to take it away from the EFR grants, or is,
I don't know what the EFR grants look like for FY27.
right? So
I think we
we're
would
not-
just have
we're not
it in
assuming-
base.
we're not
Right.
Assuming that we're going to keep that.
That's right.
Taken out there.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Any questions on all of that? Okay. So I think what I'd like to do is have. Sorry. I'm not answering. Does anybody have anything else they want to say about any of these? Please. Before we go, I think we should take a break and we want to just chat about it and think about it. And these guys are around at JFO if we have questions, and then we can come back maybe at 3 o'clock and talk about this? Is that enough time for people? But does anybody have anything they want to say before we go? Mike, I'm wondering if you have anything you want to say before we go take a little break.
I'm happy to hit on the one point that I have been thinking about, which is on the
Yes.
recovery center, which the construct that we were just looking at funded half of that recovery center request. So I think on the spreadsheet we were just looking at, it was 210,000. The request was for 420,000, and this is a tough one for me because, I think under normal circumstances, I would say, boy, we thought that 800,000 was the right amount for the year. That's what we felt like we could give the recovery centers. And so I would typically kind of be a little hesitant just to say we should be providing more. But because of the way things were distributed, not as expected to the recovery centers, particularly, there's 5 other recovery centers, of course, that were impacted, but in Bennington, which was most impacted, they are looking at a significant reduction in the budget that they went into the year simply believing they were receiving.
Right.
So I have to admit, this is one that it's an area of extreme importance to my community. I have to admit, I would love to see us fully meet this request, which again, primarily just because I want to feel like I've lived up to the commitment that we felt like we were making when we approved the budget.
Thank you, Mike. Don't go away. Lynn?
Yeah, well, we got language on, the appropriation homeless, the one that it's part of the hot money, 1.32.
Uh-huh.
And we also got also with it is the language for the 210 on the recovery center.
Are you looking, what are you
I'm
looking?
looking at the language we got.
That Grady gave us?
Yeah, it's a list of all the different,
Oh, the HOP money?
the hot money and
Yeah.
the recovery center. You didn't include that in the language. It lists the individual.
Yes. Oh, with the 210, you mean? We got 2 things. We got the hot money and the 210, and we had we had the specific dollar amounts for each of them based on 210.
So we'd include that in the language.
That will be included in the language. And if we change the amount, which is what, Mike, we would have to change the language to address that. And so, Mike, did you have a proposal you wanted us to consider?
You were
I
guess.
guess.
Yeah, no, I guess the 2 things I would say is, one, it's part of the reason I asked about anything remaining in that substance abuse prevention special fund is even if it's a small amount, right now we are kind of getting down to the small amounts on the budget adjustments. So I thought if there was anything else that could come from that, it might be worth considering.
Yeah.
And besides that, I know that if we stuck with the current construct for our funding sources, there is some on the bottom line as well. So I guess, for me, I would say use as much as possible out of the special substance abuse prevention special fund and make the rest up out of general fund.
Okay. All right. So that is something to consider from Mike. Thank you. Tom.
And I'm gonna speak in favor of trying to find money to increase the BAA appropriation to the food bank. The program that they developed, only funded it to a level of $500,000 in the big bill last year, and it's been very successful. They can use this money pretty much right away, but I just like to consider it. But it's second, so I'll just throw that up for later conversation. But the other fundamental question that I have is, are we stipulating in our work that the money that is proposed by the Scott administration to go towards property tax relief in the big bill? So I believe the number was 75 plus 30.
In FY 27, yeah.
Yes, so that money's here now, it's available here now. Are we stipulating that we're not using any of that money for any one-time payments to organizations and to needs that have been displayed? I mean, it's not like we went crazy here
Yeah,
with what's on this list, even just, I mean, no matter what the
Right.
numbers are. So I'm just curious, is that a decision that we've all made or that someone has made that we're going to move that forward and not tap into that?
I would like to not tap into that and punt that into FY 27 because there's a lot we don't know. So that was the plan, was to not, it was never my intent to use that money. It's also not my intent to necessarily put it in and say absolutely it's for education fund, because that's, the 74.9 or whatever, we talked to Grady about it this morning, and he's going to change that language that can be used for ed funding or other things. But the rest of it, at this point, we're not touching. It still feels pretty early in the game of whatever's happening in Washington.
Right, no, I'm just
So, yeah,
curious
so I'm-
because there's
yeah.
instant needs here that are not actually new programs.
Right,
It would just be enhancing programs that
Right.
we already.
right.
I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. All right, one more question and then we'll take a
Yeah,
quick break.
at the bottom of the sources, there it says, do not transfer general fund to pilot special fund, 70,000, retain 70,000 in general fund. And it says it's above that, governor rec proposal declined to transfer. That was in the governor's recommendation and we are not going to do it. Is that what I gather?
Right,
Keep that in general fund.
it's not,
It's a source.
it's a source for us to use, and that gets us, that 3.41 is what gets us to the pension that we have to do. Okay. So I would like us to break, I'm aware that the end of the day is coming and we need to get to a straw vote, and I would like to not keep people here really late, but why don't we break for 20 minutes? Be back here at 3, and then we can try to finalize all these decisions. That will give joint fiscal what they need for language. We'll probably have to break again, so they can get us whatever language they need or any other things for that.